This is the Silt Verses Roleplaying Game. We don't have a subtitle on this one yet, but maybe we will have one after today. Who knows? This is our regular Saturday group that has been playing mini games over the course of, 3 or 4 years now, I guess, at this point. And we are about to tuck into the Silt Verses Roleplaying Game, which is the newest game put out by the Gauntlet. I think I want to start, though, by having all of us introduce ourselves for people who might be joining us, this group, for the first time. When I call on you, please say your name, your pronouns, and anything else you would like for folks watching the video to know about you. And so I'll start, though. My name is Jason. I use he, they. I am the co-creator and co-writer of the Silt Verses Role-Playing Game. And I am also the creator and publisher of games like Brindlewood Bay, The Between, and Public Access, and the publisher of games like Trophy Role-Playing Game as well. I also host a couple of podcasts. Let's go over to Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben. I use he and him pronouns. I make character keepers for role-playing games. I play role-playing games, and I'm dipping my toe into writing role-playing games. And I am looking forward to playing this one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's go to Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I use she, hers, and they is also fine. I am just an avid playtester and a fan of all things roleplay.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mike.
Hi, Mike Martins, he, him, and I am a frequent contributor to Gauntlet Games. We might run into some content that I wrote for Silt Verses, as well as I am working on a upcoming big release game called Planet Raygun of sci-fi heists and stuff like that. And have also worked on a number of games and books with our next player.
Indeed. And that next player is Brian.
Hey, I'm Brian Sago. I am the author of Butter Princess, which Mike did all the design and layout for. I'm an illustrator for The Wassailing of Klaus Manor, little woodcut back there, which is Mike's game. And what else? Other things in the works that you'll see soon.
Fantastic. We're going to begin by doing CATS. CATS is an acronym that stands for concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. The purpose of CATS is to establish some basic expectations for what this game is about and what we're going to be doing during this first session. I also want to say that if you're watching this video and you are coming to the Silt Verses Role-Playing Game for the first time, or any of our games in the Gauntlet, this session 1 introductory thing that I'm running through right now is in the back of the book, so you don't have to be taking notes right now. If you're trying to emulate what I'm doing, you can just, we've done it for you. It's in the back of the book, so very helpful. CATS, concept. The Silt Verses Role-Playing Game is a tabletop role-playing game of folk, horror, and monstrous divinity, in which a group of indebted custodians are sent into isolated territories to deal with stray gods and terrifying divine manifestations which threaten the nearby community. The custodians investigate these entities and the manifestations of their power, and the manifestation of their powers, and will then seek methods to appease them, neutralize them, or otherwise engage the local community to find a solution. The custodians gradually become aware of a looming conspiracy that overshadows their work, as a powerful organization seeks to take advantage of them to fulfill its secret agenda. The custodians will ultimately decide how to confront this organization, all the while struggling with their complicated relationship to faith and the gods of their past whose power threatens to consume them. The game's mechanics are based on Apocalypse World and Brindlewood Bay, but you don't need to know anything about those games before we play. Aim. The aim of the characters in the story is to pursue investigations surrounding these stray gods and powers, and come to terms with their complicated past with a particular god, deciding if they will continue on that path and be further changed by the power that god provides. Our aim as players is the same, but also to learn more about these characters' fraught pasts and uncertain futures, as well as to paint a vivid picture of our version of the Silt Verses setting, a responsibility we all share. The aims for today's session are to create and introduce our characters, learn the basics of how the game works by playing it, and then have a debrief period at the end. Tone. The tone of the Silt Verses Role-Playing Game, much like the audio drama it's based off of, is dark, strange, and unsettling. It presents a world where monstrous horrors are viewed as miraculous and divine, and systemic cruelties as routinely accepted by society. It exaggerates difficult themes of our world by showing them as literal gods, and this converge on the absurd, but this is not intended to become a parody. A little bit of levity or humor from time to time is okay, but we will always strive to return to that dark, gloomy landscape the characters exist in. Subject matter: cosmic horror, graphic violence, ritual sacrifice, quite intense body horror, grotesque religious imagery, cults, religious trauma, harm to children and animals, family trauma, government corruption and oppression, police violence, war, and natural disasters are all things that may come up in this game. We'll talk about safety tools in a moment, but in the interest of setting expectations right now, you should know that this game deals with intense and often dark subject matter. And as we have established on our Discord in the Gauntlet, the Silt Verses really means it. Whereas a lot of games have like content warnings and subject matter warnings, the Silt Verses really means it. So just know that. Let's go to, well, first of all, do you have any questions about cats before we continue? Okay, in that case, let's go to safety tools, as I mentioned. No game is more important than the people playing it. We're going to paint a dark, unsettling landscape of the Silt Verses setting, but we're going to do it in a way that respects everyone's boundaries of safety and consent. In order to do that, we'll be using 3 safety tools for this campaign. The first is the open door policy, the second is roaming lines and veils, and the third is the X card. The open door policy is very simple. You can leave the game for any reason, and you don't have to explain yourself. Just let us know you have to go. No one here will ask you any questions about it. We're going to do roaming lines and veils, which is something I do because we've played together a lot, and I know your boundaries pretty well at this point. But in any case, if you anticipate something is coming up in the game, or something comes up in the game that you just decide you don't want to do that content, just say so, and we'll put it behind a line, which means we will not do that anymore, and we'll change whatever we have to change. Veils is similar, except it's more like you're okay with it being in the game, you just prefer not to role play that. So roaming lines and veils, it's very similar as the X card as well. The X card is there as an ultimate fail safe if something just outright happens that we all kind of miss and it is making you uncomfortable in an unfun way. Just say X card or type it in the chat and we'll stop. Are there any questions about safety tools? In that case, we're now going to go to character creation. But before we begin character creation, I want to share a few more details about the setting. These characters, the Custodians, are a group of specialists sent out into the rural territories to investigate and resolve disturbances of stray and feral gods. This is largely thankless work, with little to no resources or guidance provided beyond an initial report and directions. Each custodian has been chosen for this work in part because of their own complicated past with gods. The fact that they have an ambivalent stance towards their own faith is viewed as an asset when dealing with the fringe elements of divinity throughout the territories. Each member of the group has their own reasons for joining the Custodians, though it is rarely by choice. They are all under contract and might face debt, punishment, or consequences far worse should they fail to complete their assignments. Finally, as noted, each custodian has a complicated past with a particular god and will have to choose if they continue along that path and become changed by the powers their god awakens in them. Now, another thing to know is that these characters are to remain mysterious. We should avoid talking about their pasts, both in and out of character, unless we are prompted to do so by the game's rules. The reason we do that is because we want to learn about these characters as we play. It's just like listening to the Silt Verses audio drama or watching a good TV show. We don't learn everything about the characters at once. The information is given to us in pieces at dramatically impactful moments in the story, often through flashbacks and meaningful conversations between characters. With that said, here I would normally give you a quick summary of each faith sheet so you can decide which one you want to play, but we're not going to do that on the recording. But for people who are watching the video, the 6 core playbooks are summarized here. We have also added one more playbook since the publication of this game, and we have an 8th playbook coming very, very soon, which regrettably the 4 of you will not have an option to choose. But the 7 we have are all quite fun and good. So we're going to pause the recording right now while we go finish making characters, and then we'll come back and continue. Okay, we're back. Now that you've all made characters, let's go ahead and introduce them. Going around the table, everyone please introduce your character by name, style, and personal ritual. You can also tell us what your faith sheet moves do if you wish. I'll remind you that you should avoid sharing any details about your character's backstory at this time. So we're going to keep it real basic to start. I'm going to go in the order of the sheet. So just give us those basic details, Sarah, about your character, Zeph.
I will be playing a steward of the Cairn maiden named Zeph Harrow with they, them pronouns. They have a prayer mark tattoo that you can see just here on the inside of their elbow, faded sneakers, and a hand-stitched leather coat that has huge loose stitches between all the seams. I think, oh yes, personal ritual is skipping stones, and then altar as well.
You don't have to do the altar yet. That's the next thing coming up. So, but if you want to talk about your moves, you can, or your move, you can. But otherwise, we're good.
Oh, I thought we were all starting with the same faith moves.
Everybody has a different move to start.
Oh, excellent. So mine is a long and lonely road.
Mm-hmm.
The maiden is never far from you, sometimes walking slowly at a distance, waiting at the edge of your vision, or standing alone in a ruined and forgotten place. The maiden still has a plan for you. Whenever you are instructed to mark fate, either by a move or the keeper, mark a box below. The keeper will describe what task the maiden asks of you, usually something unrelated to the current assignment, such as a lone corpse awaiting burial, a dying person in need of company, or something else ready to be laid to rest. If you complete the task, unmark a fate box, say your final prayer when all boxes are marked, and I will serve the maiden's ends one way or another. And I have 6 boxes to check off on that little track. Additionally, when I enter a dangerous situation without concern for my physical safety, I mark a fate box and will take the next roll with advantage.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a great move. The Cairn Maiden, we'll talk more about the Cairn Maiden in a bit, but there's this idea of Cairn Maiden. You are a steward of the Cairn Maiden. You're a steward of the dead and dying. So we'll learn more in a moment. Let's go over to learn some basics about Brian's character, Japheth.
Right, I'm playing Japheth de los Santos, a monk of the Pox Murder. His style is a palm trilby, stained overalls, and his arms are wrapped in gauze that sort of ooze or weep occasionally. His personal ritual is kicking a can down the road with that sort of sense of idle meditation and making progress forward gradually. And oh wait, altar we hold for later, and the move is let it pass unto me. Essentially, I can take on conditions or physical ailments from other characters and add them as a condition on myself, stacking up more than the usual conditions that a character is allotted, and thereby gain some insights or gifts. And on the flip side, I cannot clear conditions with the journey move like normal, and I'll find out more about that as we go.
Indeed. You can stack them up, but they're hard to get rid of. Let's go over to Mike and
Basil
Mike's character,
Lechamp.
Yeah.
Basil Lechamp is a follower of the Waxen Scrivener, with a style that is kind of a vintage blazer, a scully cap, and sort of like low top, kind of vintagey looking 90s style sneakers, with like almost skateboard sneakers. He's, for what it's worth, I envision him as a chef or a cook. And his personal ritual is scrimshaw. I'm kind of taking like a broad definition of that the bones that he cooks, he does scrimshaw on. And what else do we want? The
move,
the
if you
faith
want.
move. Yeah, paper and ink. So when I was stronger in my faith, I recorded every piece of new and interesting information I came across. But now I only perform the sacrifice when I want to call on the power of the Scrivener. I find the following already. I got some things that already go into my altar, rolls of parchment, all kinds of writing stuff, and then this ink that's blacker than black. And so some of the moves kind of fuel into that. and I can clear it by performing a vile fermentation process involving a dangerous amount of my own blood. As a cook, I've got a recipe for ink, and I am able to, if the other players gather some ink when they write a prayer mark for me, they get advantage on a roll.
And let's go finally to Ben and Gage.
I will be playing Gage Wright. He, him pronouns. He is an ambassador for Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth. He wears sunglasses, a faded trucker cap, and has a faith charm that just looks like a bunch of little silver wheat charms on his wrist. He is starting with the move, one bite is never enough. Basically, I carry treats and samples of Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth's products on me at all times, or maybe not on me at all times. I just always seem to have them. And when I offer them to a side character for any situation, I roll with presence or vitality. And if it hits, they're put at ease, and any follow-up rolls are taken with advantage. On a 7 and 9, they will aid me, but demand something in return. And if a fellow custodian eats one of my treats, they will take the condition jolly. You may clear this at any time to get advantage on a single roll, but afterwards you gain the condition empty. And if you are already empty, you must write a verse.
Cereal. Okay. We're going to go around again, and we're going to tuck in a little bit more into these gods. I'm going to read the color text aloud at the top of your faith sheet, and after I read that color text, everybody else is going to name one object or piece of equipment we think your custodian would have on their altar based on what we know about them so far, which granted is not much, but you can still kind of, just whatever's implied, I suppose. You can veto any idea you don't like or ask for a revision. You will then write down the item in your altar section of your character sheet. So just so that people watching the video understand what's going on here, each of the characters has an altar. It is sometimes a small portable thing. Sometimes it is a big space, like that doesn't move. But in any case, this is where things, objects of importance, are stored by that character. And it's assumed that in their travels, they're always like digging into their altar, or they are visiting their altar. And so they have access to the items that are in their altar. If it makes sense in the scene, they can have access to it. It's assumed they would have picked it up at some point off screen. The altar also tells us a little bit about the character as well. It kind of tells us a little bit something about how they view the world, and it tells us a little bit about how they understand their own faith, right? And so we're going to talk about these faiths. We're going to talk about the stuff that is represented on the altars. As I read these little descriptive bits, just pay close attention so that you can name something for that character's altar. The altar is functionally like an equipment list. We're going to start with Zeph Harrow, steward of the Cairn Maiden. The Cairn Maiden, also known as Old Soil Breath, the Bone Crow, she who follows upon a straggling path, her amongst the wreckage. In time, all places will come to ruin. The Cairn Maiden dwells in those desolate and lonely places, and that's where you'll see her at first, a stooped and silent figure in the distance, shrouded in white, with hands wide as shovels, and grave dirt trickling through her gentle rake-like fingers. When you reach that spot, she'll be gone, but the longer you walk, the more likely you are to see her again. A bit closer, a little more distinct each time. One day she may whisper to you, and if you do not yet understand her words, you will when you're ready. She waits for you even now, as each step you take brings you closer to the place she has prepared for you, a place that's been sleeping in you since the beginning. Stewards of the Cairn Maiden carry out her work in solitude, performing the acts of her final tenderness as they bury the forgotten corpses that lay in fields and along empty roads and give comfort to those dying alone. The Cairn Maiden may appear frightening at first, but she only wants one thing from anyone: to meet you at last in your appointed place, to cradle you in her long hands and lay you gently in soft earth, watching over your body as it slowly becomes a ruin among ruins. Now, Zeph, you have chosen as your personal altar a bundle of loose bones from different creatures. Do you want to tell us more about that?
So my personal ritual is skipping stones, and I'm imagining just like this folded leather bundle, like you see sometimes for colored pencils or tools and such. Just a bundle with a leather tie, and inside is not meticulously placed, just piled in a loose coil, a bunch of different bones from a variety of different creatures. But I also think every time I open it, I find a very smooth stone with just like a particular edge or color or mark. And every time I look in my pack, I throw it across the road, skips down the road, and we drive off, and I find it again when I open the next time I go back to my altar.
I love it. Well, what sorts of things do we suppose can be found at the altar? Even things that might seem like they don't belong because they're too big or they don't make any sense. Sometimes the altar is figurative, right? The altar of your...
I have a place where I have other bones that I like swap in and out.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly. Yeah,
where I restock, so to speak.
Classic bone library. All bone collectors have them. I think you have a silver gardening trowel. Could be used for planting, but also great for digging up little rocks or something else, but tarnished and with some age, like like a funerary relic that's been passed down several generations. So not your average gardening trowel.
It's tarnished everywhere except the edges.
I think you have a hymn book of laments, none of which have ever been sung for anyone.
Sometimes
We both
go ahead. Okay, I'll go. I think sometimes when you are collecting bones, or even if the name of your god inspires you, you want to put some things that are broken back together to make them more appealing. You have a tube of super glue.
You have this clump of like old down feathers, and what's inside of it is what's important are these like 4 inch long, 3 or 4 inches long, grubs or maggots that just like stay in that form perpetually, and they kind of just nest within this down.
I love the super glue note or detail because it's like everything falls to ruin, but just not quite yet. Let's hold on just a little longer here.
We need a beautiful ruin.
Fantastic. Okay, if there are no objections to any of that, we will move on to Japheth de los Santos, monk of the Poxmartyr. Monks of the Poxmartyr, also known as Brother Boyle and Sister Sore, also known as It Should Have Been Me. Monks of the Wretchman's Order practice a radical form of self-sacrifice by ritually transferring the ailments of others into their own bodies. These pox monks can be found throughout the territories, but especially in rural places without hospitals or access to modern medicine. By many accounts, faith alone can heal, and who could question the conviction of a healer willing to take on the worst ailments themselves? You were one of them once, but try as you might, you could never heal all of the hurt. Despite years of practice, learning to bear the suffering of others so that they would live a bit longer, you could not fully accept the work as a blessing. No matter how fierce the fire of your courage, the pain never ends. And yet, without you, who else would step up? For better or worse, this cruel and twisted world still needs you. Your personal altar that you've chosen, or your altar that you've chosen, is a coin-operated vending machine. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, if you picture those moments when you're just so broken down and you're in that moment of need where all you need is just an orange crush Fanta, and you're kind of patting your pockets down to see if you have the change to shake it out of the machine, sort of desperate, but then there's that bit of relief from whatever that little vending machine can dispense to you. And it can kind of be found everywhere, but there's also that, I don't know, evening light and the glow of the machine draws you in, sort of that sense of the vending machine as a religious altar that can be found hither and thither.
Interesting. I shall have fun exploring that further. What do we suppose can be found inside said vending machine?
Uh, Decks of cards, but they've all been assembled. They're all like 63 of mixed, and it might not be a full deck of anything. Might be tarot cards, might be, like just decks of cards.
Uh, there's a saran wrapped sandwich that has been there since before you found the vending machine.
I think you have an ancient chain osteotome, which is imagine a very small hand-operated chainsaw used once upon a time for trepanation.
I'm going to say, um, hmm. So part of me wants to just keep it real simple. I'm going to say that you, as a reflection of the fact that your faith wavers, I think you just have a bunch of alcohol soaked wipes, because sometimes that's what you need. Like, sometimes that's easier than invoking the Poxmartyr. So yeah.
Alrighty. Can I add a vague thing to be named later? Is that these are like somehow corporate branded alcohol soaked wipes? Or maybe just
Yeah, well, everything
does that
is,
matter?
it would be a corporate branded, it would be a corporate branded god.
Right, yeah.
So
I don't know, maybe it
their
gets a name
wipes.
later.
Yeah.
All right.
Gage Wright. No, Basil Lachamp is next. Basil, follower of the waxen scrivener, also known as the eight-limbed scrivener, the black beetle of knowing and forgetting, and the endless inkwell. Followers of the waxen scrivener devote their lives to the recording of knowledge, scribbling down every keen insight, every tantalizing observation onto sheets of parchment or in old journals, and then abandoning it. They leave their wealth of pages to rot in the back rooms of old verminous bookshops and dank ancestral libraries. Some even cultivate colonies of rats, bookworms, and paperflies for the purpose of destroying the pages. The sacred act is putting pen to paper. That's the sacrifice the scrivener requires. And knowledge, like skin, must be shed to be renewed. So it's an interesting thing. The god cares nothing for the remembering anything. They want it all gone, but you have to record it and then forget it. And so you have chosen as your personal altar an old wood-fired oven. An interesting choice. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think one of those like big steel, like if you think of like uh, what it would probably be like 30s or 40s style, but that's sort of like all in one kind of unit with the stove and the little kind of, yeah, oven hatch. Um, yeah, a nice teal that's worn away, the paint is flaking, all of that.
I'm curious about this like cooking angle. What is
Yeah.
that about?
So I think especially like Basil's approach with the waxen scrivener is essentially like writing down anything that's like edible or drinkable, writing down how it's made. Um, and that idea of sort of like recording these acts of, Yeah, cooking of consumption in a way and then forgetting them. So essentially is like constantly writing cookbooks and recipes, but letting them go off and rot and be forgotten.
Interesting.
On that note, can I give you an item for your altar?
Yeah.
A stack of menus from pop-up restaurants and restaurants that are no longer
Ooh.
here.
You have a large matchbox filled with beetles that you can hear skittering inside that will scream and hiss when you jostle the box.
I I love that because you don't have any actual matches, you carry a magnesium flint stone fire starter.
Ben's big on the gadgets today.
I'm still thinking. I think you have. I think you have a bunch of old diagrams that were used to, like kind of like those like butcher's diagrams, basically, but for like animals and creatures that are either they're saints or they're not around anymore. We're not talking
Oh,
pigs and cows here.
yeah.
Gage Wright, an ambassador for Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth, also known as Jack of the Golden Grin, the Shredded Wheat Scarecrow, Crispy Crackle Crunch, and the Bottomless Bowl. Everyone recognizes him, a body of honey golden shredded grain, a bottomless grin that splits his cheery face, sticky hands holding a heaping bowl of that crunchy golden goodness that always satisfies. His face adorns nearly every cereal package, freight truck, and farm stand across the peninsula. But things were not always so. It took a decades-long campaign by agricultural conglomerates to slowly cannibalize the local harvest gods, replacing each one with the new grinning cereal mascot. Starving farmers were left with the choice of acknowledging the new god or watching their fields slowly wither and rot in the shadow of their competitors' towering stalks. You come from a family of farmers who were one of the last holdouts to sign a contract with Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth. To ensure that your harvest god was severed from the land and that your family remained loyal, you were conscripted to serve as a traveling ambassador for the cereal god. But your roots grow deep, and no matter how others tried to rip you from the fields, a part of the old harvest traditions still live inside you. Your altar are the ruins of an estate home, its crumbling walls open to the sky. Do you want to talk about that some more?
I think it might tie into my verses a fair bit, so I won't go into
Very
too
well.
much detail.
In that case, this ambassador of Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth, probably after the Saint Electric, probably the biggest god in the setting and most prominent and widespread and well known. What do we suppose can be found in this crumbling home?
Got an envelope with heirloom seeds that you probably shouldn't own.
Damn it.
Oh, you have two envelopes of heirloom.
Mine was a fat leather sack, but yes, I will figure out something else.
I think you actually have a sort of like a straw and a sort of straw and grain and wood effigy of the god that was supposed to be completely sublimated. You've hidden, you have either hidden there or it's just there. So.
Leaning up against the wall behind that effigy is a old, well-worn pitchfork. The handle itself is splintered with age as the symbols carved into the handle have started to crack as the wood dries.
Since you got a big thing here, let's go big. I'm gonna say there's a band or herd of horses that have taken to the estate home as their shelter now that it's been abandoned. So as you're walking around this home, you'll run into horses just hanging out.
Wild horses.
We had established that people could ask for modifications, and Ben put a thing in the chat.
I
Ben, would
was
you
teasing. It's
prefer
okay.
the
I was
keys to
just
a big
joking.
old tractor rather than an envelope with heirloom seeds? I'm happy to change.
No, I think the seats are great. I have horses. Who needs a tractor?
Indeed. Let me check my procedure here. Okay. All right, we've met the characters and we are now ready to play. We're going to take a little break. I'm going to actually go ahead and introduce the first assignment and then we'll take our break. So let me take a look at the assignments that we're going to be doing. We are going to kick off with the Dusk Mother. You can follow along on the assignments tab of the Character Keeper if you wish. The Custodians are informed of a series of disturbances near the rural town of Weft, located just on the border of the Clutching Woods. Reports of strange attacks on livestock and damage to power lines and vehicles have been documented. Hopworth Industries, a nearby meatpacking plant, claims that some kind of large predator has been raiding their compound at night. Law enforcement records show evidence of a stray angel making its haunt on the grounds of Skelton Ranch, though no conclusive action has been taken, and local residents have not been forthcoming with previous investigators. The Skelton family, thought to have abandoned production on their farm years ago, is rumored to harbor an angel which has caused trouble for other residents in the past. According to locals, the Skelton family simply refers to the entity as Mother. It is unclear what their relationship is with the angel, but it has been known to haunt the woods around their property for several generations as part of some pact. Attempts to reach the Skeltons directly were unsuccessful, so the Custodians have been directed to contain or eliminate the angel before its territory encroaches on any nearby counties. I'm going to direct the following to... to Basil. Basil, you have heard of family gods and angels before and how their influence keeps its hold over generations. What rumors of the Skelton family makes you suspect that this angel has dug its claws in too deep?
I think, and why Basil might be the one who knows this as well, that he has heard rumors of their diet, and that is actually um, not eating the the bodies in the graves of their ancestors, but going and eating the dirt around it. That they just devoured dirt from graves.
The Skeltons do.
Yes.
Ah, very interesting. So the way this game works is we have questions and opportunities. Questions are things that the Custodians are trying to answer. They represent basically lines of inquiry, essentially, into this assignment. You'll be investigating, talking to people, looking around, gathering clues, and clues are used to answer the questions. Now, I don't know what the answer to the question is as the keeper. You all will come up with the answer to the question by taking a look at the clues you have and having a little conversation with each other and just determining what it means. And then we roll some dice to see if you're correct. Once you have answered a question, you then unlock its associated opportunity. We have what's called a threshold question here, which means it's a sort of low stakes, small question you have to answer before you get to the real question. And so our initial question here is, where is the angel's nest located? It is a complexity 2, which is very easy. And if you answer it correctly, then you unlock the remaining questions. Now, it might be worth pointing out here for those who don't know the setting of the Silt Verses audio drama very well. What is an angel in the setting? Well, it is not, I wouldn't say it's super well defined, but generally speaking, an angel is an animal that is associated with a god. It can be a monstrous animal, but it's generally an animal. So, for example, in the show, the most famous angels that are represented are the little crabs that are in the river of the Trawler Man, which is the central god of the audio drama. So here you can kind of interpret angel as this is some kind of bird thing that is an angel of the Dusk Mother. And so this is what you have to deal with. An angel causing trouble at the meatpacking plant in Weft. The characters have on their sheet what are called verses. So there are two verses. You have the verse of history and the verse of prophecy. Now, if you're familiar with the other Carved from Brittlewood games, which I know you all are, but for listeners who maybe not be, the idea here is each of these verses, these sections of the sheet, have a number of prompts underneath them and checkboxes. And as the characters are doing things, if something happens in the story, they roll some dice and a bad thing happens as a result of the die roll, the player can choose to do what's called writing a verse. And that means you mark a box on the sheet, depending on which verse you try to write or you're going to write. And then you do what the prompt says. And then you get, in exchange for that, you get to revise your die roll to be something better. So the bad thing doesn't happen. We still narrate the bad thing, but then we kind of retcon it after the verse is written. And so you always have available the verse of history and the verse of prophecy. The verse of history explores your character's past, and the verse of prophecy explores their fraught relationship with their god, and it represents a sort of deepening of their connection to their god. So the more you mark the verse of prophecy, the more you are kind of like re-embracing your faith and getting deeper into your faith, as opposed to being in this sort of weird middle place you're in right now. The assignments also have verses available. And for this assignment, it's called the Verse of the Dreaming Nest. And it can only be chosen once. And once it is, we do what it says to do, which we'll reveal whenever one of you decides to do it. And so with all that said, we'll learn more about the game as we play, but I want to take a break for now. I need to review the assignment sheet a little bit, and you all can go get a drink or whatever you need to do. We'll come back in 15 minutes. We'll come back in 15. We will play a little bit, and then we'll do stars and wishes at the end. Okay. So we have about a little under an hour left of gameplay. And in this first session, for the remainder of the time we have, I want to emphasize a couple of things. You have a lot of information on your character sheet between the faith sheet and the character sheet. There's a lot of stuff. You have the verses of history and prophecy. You have your moves. You have lots of ability scores and terms. There's a lot there. There's also a lot in this setting. This setting is a lot like our world, circa the early to mid 90s, I guess, but it's very rural, and it's not our world. It's a different world. It's a world that has tens of thousands of gods. Everything in this world revolves around the worship of gods, from, massive corporate marketing campaigns to small personal private acts of worship, like the skeletons in their ranch, and everything in between. Every the cereal that you eat, right, has a branded god, Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth. The candy bars in the vending machines, they have, there are gods that are responsible for the products that go, or for the things that go into these candy bars. There are ancient gods, there are new gods. People in this world create their own gods. The creation of gods is a thing that corporations and other groups get up to. It's a lot, But for now, I don't want you to worry about that. What I want you to worry about for now is just learning the rules of the game. So you have this assignment, walk around, ask questions, look at things, turn things over. If your moves or other abilities get triggered, then great, we'll explore that and we'll see what it means. But don't worry too much about all of these details yet. I would, however, like for you in the interim between sessions to worry about those things. And so I think it would be very good to read, especially your verse of history, and read those prompts and think about what it means for your character. That's your homework assignment. Also, be thinking about gods. And, there are tens of thousands of gods in this world, but probably fewer than 100 have been given names canonically between the role-playing game and the audio drama, right? So be thinking of what types of gods might be in the world, what sorts of things you might interact with, and just be giving it some thought. If you haven't listened to the audio drama, you don't have to, but I do recommend episodes 3 and 7 of the first season because they're very, very similar to what what's happening in those episodes is very similar to what this game is about. So, with all that said, let's do some investigating for a little bit. The town of Weft. I think it's fair to say that you've all arrived together. If no one cares, I'm going to say you have a truck or a van of some sort that you go around in. You can all define that as you wish. You have not been on any assignments together yet, though you are all associated with this particular organization in the government. We'll talk more about that organization as we play. You have this assignment. We don't dwell on how you got the details of it, but you just have it. You know a few things to get started. You know that this angel has been terrorizing and indeed making difficult the business going on at this meat processing plant nearby. You know that there is this family, the Skeletons, that may be connected to this angel. And Basil has a sense that these Skeletons are in really deep with this angel because of their behavior, things that we've heard. So I don't think you have to have necessarily rolled into the middle of Weft right now, but you can if you wish. I just want to get a sense of what everybody wants to do. How do you want to approach this? And then we'll kind of figure out what the scenes look like after that. So going around the table, Gage, what do you think here?
I think I would like to check out some of the farm parts of the ranch, the more agricultural, or where the animals were, I guess. That seems like my
So you're going to go to the
specialty.
Skeleton Ranch. Okay, I like that. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's go over to Basil. What do you think, Basil? What's your approach here?
I think as the foodie, I would probably center on Hopworth Industries as close as I can get to the meatpacking plant itself, if not directly there.
Mm-hmm. And that'll be on the way into town, so you can actually be dropped off there while the others go do other things. Japheth?
I think somebody in the town of Weft works, has to work there. Probably multiple people. I want to go find out sort of the employee stance of this. Like, what are they seeing on their end?
Mm-hmm.
Find somebody local and, I don't know, hit them up over a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I like that. And Zeph?
I recall in the assignment that the complaint from the meatpacking plant was somebody, like there was a big animal or something hassling their compost in the back or something.
It's this angel. I'll read it to you again. So basically, a stray angel is making its haunt. Oh wait, no. Some kind of large predator has been raiding their compound at night, and law enforcement believes it's this stray angel that's been making its haunt somewhere near Skeleton Ranch, though they don't know that for sure.
So Zeph does not trust the local authorities to accurately say one way or another if this is or is not an angel. And because I think it's also on theme of like that decomposition. I think that's where I'm most comfortable in two fashions. So I'm going to go confirm that this, in fact, is an angel hassling the meat plant or something else.
So you're headed to the meat plant. Basil's headed to the meat plant. Japheth is headed to town, it sounds like. And Gage is going to go look for Skeleton Ranch. I like it. Why don't we start with the town, actually? And Japheth. So, the town of Weft features a main street full of potholes and weeds, storefronts with cracked windows and faded signs. You actually see abandoned cars with flat tires, and there's even a rusty bike chained to a tilting signpost. In the distance, you might hear sounds of a sputtering generator hammering, maybe a lone dog barking. Now we're going to do what's called Paint the Scene. Paint the Scene is I pose a question to you all, and in the answering of that question, we explore an idea about this place. And this first Paint the Scene question for the town of Weft is, by all appearances, this town is dying out. How can we tell that some residents, however, still care for it fiercely?
Some of the fronts of the buildings have started to become overgrown with plants that don't look quite right, but they also look like they're thriving in such a way that people might actually be watering what is essentially holding their house or storefronts aloft.
There are signs and posters everywhere for a big holiday parade that's coming up. Maybe tomorrow, however you want to decide to do that. And you can also see underneath some of those, you can see like just many other notifications of parades. Like they're always trying to throw some kind of like big celebration.
I think if you look in every window, every storefront, there's a little coin collection bin that someone has made and hand painted that says "Save Weft," and residents drop their change in it.
That chained up bicycle is actually a joke. Like nobody needs to chain a bike in a town like this. Everybody knows whose bike is whose bike. Uh, but if you look like kind of down below, there's a little brass sign that says bikes for tots, bikes for free, and kind of an encouragement of like, bring your young children to our town. We have free bicycles for everyone.
Japheth, there doesn't seem to be a lot of people around, and most of the storefronts are abandoned. We are in what's called this game has a fairly loose phase structure, and we're in what's called the investigation phase. The other phase of play is called the journey phase, which is when you travel between assignments. But right now, there's just this one assignment, and so we're in investigation phase, and we will be until, or you will be until you decide to travel to another assignment in the future. And so, how do you want to begin this investigation?
I feel like I need to arrive either before the start of a shift or after the end of a shift, sort of the, you know, people getting off of Hopworth meatpacking plant
Hmm.
are either going to be stopping in to get a cup of coffee before they go in for their job. I think that's where I want to be, but it could be after they get off work. But that sort of, yeah, let's do dawn, like early, getting a cup of coffee and chatting up. I'll be the obvious stranger face from out of town, chatting up somebody who maybe they've got the little Hopworth Industries patch on their jumper overall thing, to try and ask them about not, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sure they're going back to work wondering what happened last night, like what mess is going to be waiting for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So me sipping my
Yeah.
coffee and somebody who's got the Hopworth badge on, I say, Weft is a glorious town. I travel a lot, and I've never seen a town quite like this. I think there's a lot of hope here. Each day's a new day.
This person who's wearing they do have a little badge, or a little like kind of, a little like badge around their neck. You know they're a Hopworth employee because the badge has the mark of the Chitterling, which is a sort of a god in this setting, a god of, oh, how should we put it? Meat and the processing of meat and the consumption of meat is the Chitterling. He's bleary-eyed. He still has a bunch of stubble, hasn't even bothered to shave. You can smell his breath when he replies to you. He says, come again, friend? What was that?
I'll make myself look a bit awkward and do the kind of crossed handshake where like I've got the coffee cup in one hand and I'm kind of reaching across myself. Say, my name's Japheth. I'm not from around these parts, you could probably tell. But I pass through often. And I think the last I was to Weft, things were a little more settled than this, it seems.
So here we're going to go ahead and trigger a move. The move we're going to trigger is called the information move. When you search for a clue, conduct research, or otherwise gather information, describe how you're doing it, and roll with an appropriate ability. Now, you've described it by basically trying to be friendly to this guy and get him to open up to you. And so I think that the ability that gets triggered is what's called presence. Presence is used whenever you are trying to charm someone or get their attention or just to intimidate them even, but just basically using your personality or your sociability. And so your presence score is 0. So you're going to roll 2d6, add 0 to it, and then we'll check the result against the move.
Right. It's an 8.
On an 8, let's see here. On a hit, and a hit is a 7 or more, you will find a clue. I will tell you what the clue is. However, on a 7 to 9, there's a complication, either with the clue itself or a complication you encounter while searching. I'll tell you what the complication is. He says, yeah, I guess you could say that folks are definitely a little bit more on edge. We've had some trouble out at the plant. Maybe that's what is causing everybody to be a little, well. And here he kind of leans forward and he says, truth be told, I'm not sure I want to go back there today. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable about the whole situation. I heard something broke in, just it was a wolf maybe, or some kind of fox or something. But I think it's worse than that. It wasn't no fox that did what happened to them cows. And here, I'm going to give you the clue. But I do think the complication you're going to notice as he's talking to you. I mentioned his foul breath. The reason why his breath is so foul, as he speaks, you can see pus-filled abscesses in his gums and on his tongue. He occasionally has to stop and kind of dab something in his mouth to soothe the pain. He says, sorry, he says, and he's kind of still in pain. Like, he's like, I'm real sorry. And I think in order for him to like keep going, to keep opening up to you, you're gonna have to help him with this.
Yeah. He hasn't yet divulged his name, so I'm gonna say, friend, I could help you with that. I've got a skill, a nature about me. Some folks, not, and I don't want to talk myself up too much, but I can help with that if you're willing. And I kind of look around to see if anybody's within earshot. Try and make it just a little bit creepy and vulnerable, but I can help you with.
Let's talk about this. So your move is called Let It Pass Unto Me. You can take on his abscesses and sores into your own body, and it would be noted as a condition on your character sheet. And then you roll. Do you want to do this?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I don't recommend you do it right out here in the middle of where people are trying to eat their
Oh
breakfast.
no. That's what the back alleys are for.
Exactly.
Back alleys are for this sort of medicine.
He might. Do you have any kind of like markings on your body that would indicate that you follow the Poxmartyr?
My forearms are wrapped in gauze, and you can sort of see seeping wounds through, and there's past the fringe of the gauze, there's some blisters and haphazardly stitched injuries that show I'm somebody who's used to illness. And if you look at my straw hat, it's got a couple holes in it, and the overalls, there's some tatters and some patches. I'm kind of I don't know. I'm trying to keep myself together, but I'm clearly a walking wreck.
We're going to come back to this scene. I have an idea for it, but I want to cut to the other players for a bit. Sarah and Basil, since Brian's determined that it's early in the morning, this actually might, or Zeph and Basil, this might actually work out for you both well, because you could get to the plant before anyone's there, right? And that could be very helpful, because it's apparently really early in the morning. Let's just have the scene of the two of you together as you're sort of approaching the plant and figuring out what you're going to do. Role play.
I think it'll probably be simplest to avoid management. Go along the fence, hop over, maybe take a walk out back, see what's been disturbed out there.
And Basil, for what it's worth, has his like little like custodian standard issued notebook. And has taken, I'm imagining kind of like fields of grain, sort of similar to what's behind Ben's background, and has taken like, and he does this a lot. I think Zeph would know this, like, and has like taken a little taste of it and is just writing down like recipes off of the top of his head, and just kind of like Hansel and Gretel style, just like as soon as he finishes recipe, he just rips it off. And so he's like very distracted on that, and just kind of looks over. Management, I'm not so worried about management.
Okay, well, it's too early for me to deal with other human beings other than you, okay? So, and I imagine in our journeys thus far, the one time that Basil and Zeph get into really intense conversation is not about their gods at all, but about terroir. I can tell you what this dirt does to change the taste of this food.
Oh, I like that. And so, yeah, maybe Basil just like shifts the conversation and is just kind of like, hmm, what do you think about the soil here, Zeph? I'm trying to come up with some new things, some new ways for this town to find sustenance and joy in what they eat.
Zeph, are you going to explore the terroir here?
So Zeph's plan was to like hop a fence and get around back to see what is back there without any of the company influence. I don't want to deal with that. It's too early.
Yeah.
So I think I'll just turn to Basil and say, yeah, okay, but you have to let me stand at the compost first. I don't have any information. It's back here. And then we just kind of head that direction.
So you're going to go rooting around in cow shit, basically, is what you're telling me, in pig shit. Got it. Love it. What a pleasant introduction.
I'm sure there's moldering
to this assignment we
grains
have
and leftover hay.
between mouth abscesses and manure piles. Really, really, really loving it so far. I love this. I want to know specifically what you're doing, though. Like, this is because this is going to determine what ability gets used.
So I am just using an observational skill of I am going to hop over this fence and see if I see holes that have been dug, or if there are power lines that have been snapped, or parts of the building collapsed. I want to see evidence of this animal, this creature. And I think that rooting around in shit will also help with just
yeah, I love it. I
seeing
think
what
this
it might be going for. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same move, information move, except I think you're going to be using insight. Insight is used if your custodian is studying books, researching a problem, examining a crime scene, or otherwise engaging their mental faculty. That's kind of what it sounds like you're doing as you examine all this soil. Do go ahead and roll 2d6 plus your insight score of 2. So,
Woof. A 5.
A 5. Let's keep
That's
reading.
A +2. It's 5.
Let's keep reading the move. It says on a miss. Oh, actually, there's no miss condition. Never mind. So if the miss is not defined by the move, I just get to react as the keeper in whatever way I see fit. That makes sense. But I'll try to bear in mind that it won't be anything too hard that you couldn't have foreseen coming. As you're rooting around, maybe with your boot, through these manure piles, you will notice sprouting out of one particular pile is a little tendril, a fungal tendril. Now, this in and of itself would not be anything that interesting, except said tendril is worming back and forth just a little bit. In fact, you might even think it's a worm at first. It almost like stops, maybe like when it thinks you're looking at it as well. And here we are going to trigger another move. We have 2 moves that handle sort of like the basic, like kind of risky actions or the fear-based reactions of the characters. They're called the Veiled move and the Revelation move. The Veiled move is just any kind of risky action or you're facing down a fear that does not involve gods. The Revelation move is when those actions also involve a god. And mushrooms that move on their own almost certainly imply the presence of God. And so we're going to do the Revelation move. When you do something risky or face something you fear, name what you're afraid will happen if you fail or lose your nerve. In this case, if you lose your nerve right now.
I mean, it's worse than me stumbling backwards and falling and covering my leather coat in a bunch of unknown scat. It's worse than that, but I don't know how.
Well, but is that what you're scared of though? Is falling down in the
Oh,
poo?
100%. It's a presentation thing. I don't want to have to smell like my personality all day.
Because it's the revelation move. I have to also tell you how it's worse than you fear, and it's worse than that. When you fall down, you will actually fall down into a larger hidden clump of this fungus. If you're okay with this, you can roll dice. If you want to just abandon the situation entirely, you won't have to roll dice. What do you do?
I think that Zeph is poignantly afraid of a fungus that can consider me as I approach it, and it's a almost Scooby-Doo level of panic and three sliding steps backwards and running into Basil, just completely abandoning what I was
You're
doing.
abandoning it. Okay, very good. How are you feeling right now?
Watched.
Take a condition called being watched. Basil, Zeph has abandoned the plan of rooting around in the back of the meat processing plant. Let's just have that scene. Let's let it go for a little bit longer. What are you doing, Basil?
Would I have seen the fungus?
And only if Zeph tells you.
Okay.
Otherwise, no.
It does stink a bit, doesn't it?
Oh, I think we're in a deeper situation than just this shit, Basil. What do you know about mushrooms, man? Like, that one's looking at me.
Kind of perks up. Which one is looking at you?
And you'll just see a single little mushroom sticking out of the dirt.
Yeah. Basil's just gonna go over and eat it.
You just go
Take a
and put
little
it in your
bite of
mouth.
it. Yeah.
This is absolutely the revelation move. What are you afraid is going to happen if this goes poorly for you?
I mean, strange fungi are poisonous. So that.
It's worse than that.
Sure.
You will be subsumed by this fungal god.
Oh, cool.
If you wish to continue with this, you are going to roll the revelation move. I think it's going to be with vitality.
Okay. It's gonna be flat. It's a 10.
Nice. On a 10 plus, you do what you intended or you hold steady. Yeah, describe the scene. What happens here?
I'm kind of interested in Zeph's reaction as Basil is just kind of like marching towards this, and I think you would have that ominous feeling. Like you would know exactly what Basil's doing based on um our interactions before. And I think I like pluck it up, like whatever this little like bit is, and just say, "This one?"
Man, that is such a bad idea.
Oh, I've seen these before. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, like kind of like working it around in my mouth, like trying to get a taste of it. And
Zeph is
yeah,
imagining the flavor because Basil has a very animated way of tasting food, and so Zeph is having the imagined flavor reaction of. Are you good?
once I've gotten like a sense of like the internal taste and aroma and that type of thing, I just kind of open my mouth and stick out my ah.
Oh, man, say it. Don't spray it.
Basil, if you wish, you can make the information move with communion.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's gonna sure. Let's do it.
What's your communion score?
-1.
-1. Okay.
That is also a 10.
Your dice are very kind
Well, it's
to you
a
today.
-1, so it'll drop down to a 9.
Oh, okay. With complication. Yeah, that's good. I like it. Interesting. I'll think about this. Come back to you in a moment. Gauge. Biased, that's the spoken acronym of the organization you work for. Biased did not give you any particular directions where to find the Skelton family ranch, only that it's located somewhere in the heart of the Clutching Woods. And so that's a bit on you. Let's talk about the Clutching Woods. They are narrowing tunnels of sickly briars and fallen branches, buckling footbridges dragged down by strangling roots, patches of oil-slick bog skewered by sun-starved trees. Let's paint the scene, everyone. The land here is horribly polluted, but not truly dead. What menacing features of the Clutching Woods should make Gage most concerned for his safety?
Where in a more natural forest environment, water would gather amongst the big roots of trees. When you step over them and you splash your foot into a puddle, it's no longer water. In these woods, it bubbles up with something almost corrosive to not only your flesh, but then also like your well-being, that you want to sink deeper into it.
I think that there's just trap cameras everywhere, like way, way too many.
Think all of the sun-starved trees, unless you are looking very, very closely, they all look the same. They all seem to have the same pattern of branches, the same height, and the foliage doesn't start until high up. You can't tell what direction you've come in.
Here and there in the landscape are broken shards of blue glass sticking up. And occasionally you see an old sign that says something to the effect of the clutching bottling factories. There's an evidence that there used to be like a factory here that bottled something. But most peculiar about these shards of broken glass is a kind of crown shyness. Like each shard of glass is only so close to another shard of glass.
Gage, you're in the middle of this unpleasant wood. What do you do? Looking for the Skelton Ranch.
I think after a bit of wandering around, he's going to start making uh, making an effort to, whenever he sees one of those cameras nearby, just kind of crouch down, put his face in the frame, tilt his head, give a little friendly wave, hoping maybe he'll draw some attention from someone watching.
Interesting. Interesting indeed. Make the veiled move. What do you afraid is going to happen here if you fail?
I'll draw the attention from someone watching.
Indeed. And this would presumably be a bad thing. Intriguing. I think this is probably a move that's going to be made with probably focus, I'm going to say. Focus is used if your action requires a calm disposition, and so I think this applies here. 2d6 plus 1 in your case.
That is a 9.
A 9. you are looking in these cameras. Will somebody remind me? I guess they were they like CCTV cameras, basically? Is that the idea?
Trail cameras usually record on a card on the camera itself.
Oh,
But
right.
we could
Got
say
it.
that they're connected.
So they're not live necessarily. Got it.
All right.
Got it. Got it. Got it. I like this. I think it works. You can see that the camera is marked with several prayer stamps, the Saint Electric, obviously, but also one of the Saint Electric's subsidiary divinities, in this case, the All-Seeing Eye. None of that matters. You're being watched, but not by whoever's in the camera, on the other end of the camera. And certainly, you wouldn't have any way of knowing anyway. You're being watched by someone whose footsteps you can hear behind you. You've maybe heard them the whole time, but as you get close to the camera, there is a increased sense of urgency in the crunching on grass and loam. What do you do?
I'm just gonna turn around with a friendly smile and my hands in my thumbs tucked into my pockets.
You see a middle-aged man wearing camo jacket and overalls. He's got a gray ponytail. He kind of comes out. He's got a hunting rifle. And he says, "Hi."
Good morning.
Yeah, suppose it is a good morning. We don't get many people out here.
Yeah, it doesn't look like. I'm looking for the Skeleton Ranch.
He comes in. He comes kind of into the little clearing that you're in. Says, "Skeletons."
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, they don't really like visitors, outsiders. You sure about that?
I think they'll like me just fine.
You seem awful cheery for this early in the morning.
What can I say? Lifelong morning person, early bird and all that.
Yeah. I guess that's the theory I'm operating under here, too. Though, truth be told, I'm mostly just out here to move my bones around. I ain't seen a deer here in months. Ain't seen much of anything, to tell the truth.
I imagine all this glass here a bit tricky for the hooved ones.
Yeah, I suppose a bit. And you can go ahead and make the information move with presence to see if he opens up a little bit more.
Ooh, before I do that, could I offer him a treat, perhaps?
Yeah, it is early in the morning. Let's
He'll
read your move. Yeah.
Everyone loves a treat. As an ambassador of all things crunchy and delectable, I always have packaged sweets and cereal samples on hand, stashed in my pack or conjured from thin air. No one knows where they came from, and no one seems to care.
When you offer a treat to a side character, roll with presence or vitality. So roll that instead. Well, what does this look like? What do you do?
I think he'll kind of tilt his head as if he's appraising the man and say, "Friend, you look like you could use a bit of breakfast this morning. Since there's no deer, let me help you out. Take off his pack and make a show of searching through it before coming out with I think it's a brand new Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth crunchy bar.
Oh, go ahead and roll with either presence or vitality, your choice.
I will go presence. And it's a good thing because that's 7.
On a hit, this character will be put at ease by your cheerful demeanor Any follow-up rolls during interactions with them are taken at advantage. On a 7 to 9, they will aid you but demand something in return. I'll describe what it is. So they're put at ease, but they might want something. Well, we'll see how that goes. He says, well, I actually am operating on an empty tank at the moment. And I don't think I've seen this particular cereal bar. Is this a new one?
It is. Should be hitting the shelves next month, if I recall correctly.
Oh, well, there we go. Oh, thank you. And he extends his hand. My name's Ridley Hemsworth.
Good to meet you, Ridley. I'm Gage.
Gage. And he's like, I consider myself a pretty good gauge of character. And I think you've got a good one. Crunch.
Oh, I appreciate that, Mr. Ridley. You live out this way?
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm in Weft, I guess. But I have a little stand out here that I retire to from time to time just to get away from, domestic variances.
Of course. Yeah, it's always good to get out to nature.
Mm-hmm. So skeletons, huh?
Indeed, yeah.
You can go ahead and make the information move at advantage now. So advantage means you're going to roll 3 dice and then take the 2 highest and then add your presence.
That is 10.
10, nice. So I owe you a clue. I owe Basil a clue. And I owe Japheth a clue. Let's do the Japheth scene. So Japheth, since you got a 7 to 9 on this roll, I'm gonna further complicate the matter just a little bit. This person, his name is Dennis Rigsby. He is happy to receive your help. You have gone around back, and we'll talk about what that scene looks like in a moment. But before you minister to him, he says, I should tell you that I could have gotten this taken care of a number of weeks ago. You're not the first poxmunk to travel through town. Do you know a lady by the name of Sister Quarrel? Well, it's neither here nor there. Sister Quarrel, she and I, let's just say we've been close from time to time, but we had a bit of a falling out. And would you know, that falling out just happened to occur right before I got this. And here he pulls his lip down and you see this horrible, like, bubbling abscess inside his inner mouth. I just want to tell you that in the interest of full disclosure, I've been on the Poxsmarter shit list, I guess, vicariously speaking. And if you still wish to help me, then I will receive that help. But I don't want you to be in bad with your god or Sister Quarrel for that matter.
I nod knowingly and say, let's talk privately in the alley here, where prying eyes and ears will not be witness to a more frank discussion. I appreciate your candor, Dennis. Brother Dennis, I should say. Often those of us who are most repulsed by the Poxsmarter prove the most faithful in the end. And if you're willing to pass your burden onto me, I think I can provide you a little bit of relief here. And there in the alley, I'll kind of spread one arm wide and the other arm like straight into his jaw. like reaching for a pus-filled abscess to gruesomely burst it and sort of take that ichor onto my own body. Say,
Do you like rub the
oh,
pus inside your own mouth?
oh, I'm about to. Give me a second.
Okay,
We
go
have
ahead.
to provide the ritual incantation first.
Mm.
Something in the veins of, oh, sibling of the mortal flesh. We are held here together by these worldly bonds, and yet that is a blessing, one that we should not be stingy with. We should share all forms of life, even the forms of life which some might count as bacterium or pestilence. Uh, all life must be passed on, and if it is causing you pain, it shall bring me succor. And in that sense that life is life, I wish for you to share with me, sibling, the blessing that you have received. Pass it on to me. Pass it on to me. And then and, like rub a little pinch under my cheek and gums.
I love it. Let's go ahead and roll your move. Your move says, let me find it here. Go ahead and, okay, so you've done it. Noted as a condition. So this is going to be mouth abscesses.
All right.
And roll with vitality.
7.
On a hit, you choose one from your list of options there.
Right. Should have read these a little deeper first, pardon me. It seems like we could gather clues. Let's gather a clue that ties into the Dusk Mother.
Now, I will note here that one of the options is the ritual does not attract unwanted attention. And so by not choosing that, you are sort of inviting unwanted attention.
I am new to town. I want all the unwanted attention. Like as a plot device, the unwanted attention should also pass on to me.
I love it. I think at this precise moment, as you are, as you're sort of rubbing the pus inside your mouth, as you're feeling the tender flesh inside your mouth start to stretch taut as the sores burst through. And indeed, as Dennis Rigsby is kind of shouting, but quietly as best he can in his excitement, oh, the pain, it's going away. It's going away. Praise be to the Poxmartyr. At this moment, you hear the rumble and roar of an old motorcycle. A motorcycle that, as it pulls into the alley, gives the appearance of one that runs purely on miracles. There is a woman atop it with windswept gray hair, a white scarf, black leathers. She takes off her goggles, and you see her face is covered in tattoos meant to hide the scars that she has received as a pox monk. And she says, Dennis Rigsby, it seems we need to have a little discussion, you and me. You and me and your new friend. We'll pick up with that next time. Let's cut over to, but I do owe you 2 clues. So make a note that I owe you 2 clues from this scene. Basil, I'm going to go ahead and give you your clue, though. Your clue that you get by communing with whatever this fungal god is. As you commune with this fungal god, you start to see things in a different way. things are glowing, highlighted. Things that either this god wants you to see or something inherent in consuming the mushroom causes your senses to be awakened to. You see a snake snatching a mouse up for its breakfast underneath some brush. You see worms crawling in the loam. And most importantly for our purposes, you see deep gouges and claw marks on the trees, territorial signs of a large predator. That's your clue. Zeph, what are you doing in the meantime? Zeph, what are you doing while this is going on?
Apologies. Was making stars. Well, that was um I think that Zeph is still like backing away from the initial site that they were investigating, and instead will kind of like peer around the corners of the building to observe anything else about the pattern of workers arriving or security shifts or anything else that might have happened in the night or previous day.
Let's just get a die roll on the table. Information move with focus, and you are being watched, but I don't think that it's going to affect your die roll, so you can roll 2d6.
They can focus on me while I focus on something else. Oh, that's better. I will take an 11.
Nice. I owe you a clue. I owe Japheth 2 clues. Let's wrap up our session today with Gage. Gage, what'd you get on your die roll?
A 10.
10. Talking to Ridley Hemsworth. He says, I can point out the direction of the Skeleton Ranch, although that's a bit of a misnomer. The place has really gone to seed at this point. But, well, just be careful. I've heard a lot of rumors about that family, a lot of stories. And, well, and he kind of like laughs. He says, it is what it is. When you get there, you're going to see what I mean. But, and he starts to like chuckle a little bit. I recommend when you go there, you bring an offering for Cousin Skeleton's nest.
Cousin Skeleton's nest of what?
And he kind of like chuckles a little bit. Says, I guess where he lays his eggs, I'm not sure, friend.
Okay, yeah. Well, lucky for me, I am loaded for bear with treats.
That is your clue, though. Your clue is that Cousin Skeleton has a nest. And that's going to conclude our session for today. Let's go to the end of session. End of session is a little upkeep phase of sorts where we do a few little things before we end. The first is we collect rewards if an assignment was resolved, but it was not yet. And then we answer end of session questions. So you all have some questions. 2 of them are always the same, and 2 are things that you can pick. You can change them between sessions. Everybody has the same 2 to start. Did the Custodians complete an assignment? Not yet, so you don't get credit for that one. Did you engage with a god, angel, or other divine manifestation? Now, in that case, you might have. Let's start with Zeph. Zeph, did you engage with a god, angel, or other divine manifestation?
Tried really hard not to.
You actually did try really hard not to, didn't you? Yeah. Japheth, did you engage with a god, angel, or other divine manifestation?
To my knowledge, no.
Basil Lechamp, you definitely engaged with a god, angel, or the other divine manifestation, so you get to mark that, and you get an XP for that.
With
And
Japheth doing the transfer of the grossness, does that count as engaging with the Poxmartyr?
if Japheth thinks it is, I'm into it, but it's kind of.
Let me ask a question about engagement then. Yeah, like, am I face to face with this or channeling the energy?
You can define it however you want. It's kind of up to you.
Oh, do I have to channel the energy straight into my face? Is that how?
Like, when you do this, do you think you are in direct communion with Poxmartyr, or are you just the tool, the tool of an absent god? Yeah.
I feel like the average being would not be able to survive what I've taken on, and so it does feel a bit like I'm channeling some divine connection to pull this off and not just collapse in a puddle of moral goo.
Take credit for it.
All right.
Gage, did you engage with a god, angel, or other divine manifestation?
I don't think so.
Now let's go to the questions that you've all chosen for yourselves individually. Zeph, did you deliver a monologue about any of the following? The nature of gods, the futility of individual choices in the face of indifferent powers, the horrors that society accepts as good and necessary.
Not today. It's still very early in the morning.
It is indeed. Did you struggle with your personal faith?
I'm going to make a pitch for yes, because I, as steward of the Cairn Maiden, should really find comfort in mushrooms and that kind of natural decomposition.
Decomposition, yeah, absolutely.
And so reacting in like fear, I'm going to take the
I agree.
XP.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a good justification too. Japheth de los Santos, did you go out of your way to connect with the local community?
I'm gonna say yeah. I took on some puss from the local community.
Yeah, you didn't have to do that. Yeah.
Over a cup of coffee.
Did you deliver a monologue about the aforementioned things? Okay. So let's go to Basil Lechamp. Did you go out of your way to connect with the local community?
Not yet.
Did you undermine the orders of your superiors or use the assignment to pursue personal interests?
I don't think so. I think both of these I'm teetering on the edge, but not there yet.
Yeah, we haven't had time to really kind of see where it's going yet. Gage, did you go out of your way to connect with the local community?
Does giving treats count as? I don't think that's going out of his way. But
I don't think it's going out of your way necessarily, no. And you were just kind of engaged in your normal job, I think. Did you undermine the orders of your superiors or use the assignment to pursue your personal interests?
Not yet.
Very well. So everyone's got some well, not everybody, but everybody's got an opportunity to get XP marked, and XP is settled. Let's go to, do we have any moves that resolve at the end of the session? And I don't think we have any verse prompts marked for this little short play session. So that concludes our session for today. We're going to do stars and wishes. That's a debrief technique. Stars are things that you want to highlight as things you enjoyed, either the game or the setup or something in the story, something in the gameplay. And then wishes are things that you hope to see in the story next time. And so I'll kick us off though and say that as a star, I already quite like these characters. They are these characters come preloaded in a lot of sense, like they have a lot going on already before they even hit the table. But I think you're all doing a really good job, like kind of testing the boundaries of that and figuring out like what is what and what to do. And already just in these like little initial scenes that we've gotten with the characters, we've learned a little bit about how these characters solve problems. And I think that's really, really great. I loved I loved the Pox monk just grabbing the mushroom and popping it in his mouth. That was really good. It was such a nice like bookend to Zeph's to their reaction to the mushroom. It was a nice like kind of counterpoint to it. And I also really like this like early note that Zeph might have a really, really complicated relationship with the Cairn Maiden. So this is really intriguing because you're right. This fungal god should be like a little bit simpatico with the Cairn Maiden, right? They are kind of in the same, maybe, we don't really know for sure, but instinctively it seems like they should be. So yeah, I find that interesting. Love the whole scene with Japheth and Dennis Rigsby and the abscess, and as a wish, I'm really excited to see how this situation goes with this person who is presumably Sister Quarrel showing up on the scene. And yeah, and I also really enjoyed using the sweet treats move. What is the exact name of that move? It has a fun name. One bite is never enough. The use of one bite is never enough was really great, and it was such a good use of that move to kind of like to get the character to open up, and it led to like a kind of just a simple scene, but a good scene, like a kind of simple kind of like friendly scene. And as a general wish, I'm just really excited to well, because there'll be another assignment introduced first thing when we start again, and so I want to see if any of you are going to engage the journey phase to go to that assignment, or if you're going to stay here in the investigation phase. And I'm curious to see some more of the horror elements come out. We haven't seen too much of it yet, and so I'll be very excited to do some of that. Yeah.
I'm going to start with stars for free bicycles and parades. I think that this is such a fun environment to start painting scenes in, and as we start to describe, like I loved all of the trees were identical shapes. That felt really manufactured. Is it a god? Is it a response to a different god? It's the opening up more places to explore with our own paint the scene questions. So that's been already on point. A star for biased. I had forgotten the acronym and I still love it. It still makes me giggle every time. It's just so good. Also a star for just having like a sentient fungus for horror light. Still horrifying enough. You know what I mean? Like to have plants consider you actively is just like the perfect soupçon of creepiness to start this like little mini session. So star there. And for Basil's iron stomach, I thought that was fucking on tone, great. The way the dice told that story. Wishes. I loved starting a quarrel with Sister Quarrel, like Brian, you choosing to attract attention in that moment for both story beats and just it also excellent. And then I think my other wish is to figure out where we all sit in the van, because I think that part of the journey scenes are really about how we interact with each other in small confined spaces. So I'm looking forward to see how these characters deal with those scenes too.
Oh, before anybody goes, the Bureau for the Investigation of Assimilation of Stray Deities, biased. Yeah.
I'll go. I enjoyed seeing everybody's characters. I'm glad that even though it wasn't all of us, I feel like in almost every CFB game that I have played, at least that first session, everyone just goes off and does their own thing. So it was nice to get a taste of the characters interacting with each other, with Basil and Zeph, and see kind of a glimpse of how the group dynamics might build as we come back together. But there's a wish. I'm looking forward to seeing the group dynamics, seeing who sits where in the truck, and also who likes who doesn't like who. It'll be fun. Star for the characters and what we've seen, which hasn't been too much, but star and anti-star for Brian, taking the gross abscesses into yourself in a way that was better than it could have been. So thanks for not going there, but also, boo, you didn't go there. Basil's reaction with the fungus, as previously highlighted, not what I expected from Basil as you introduced him, and it kind of threw a twist, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Basil reacting to the weirdness that we're going to see. And Zeph, yeah, it was really compelling, your reaction to this fungal god, and I look forward to seeing more of you and the Cairn Maiden. It'll be fun. Just good time. Looking forward to digging in now that we're past the introduction stuff and getting into the meat of it. The moldering, rotten, disgusting meat of it.
I think just kind of echoing a lot of what has been said, Star, for just a first session with this group. I think it's really fun to see these characters and know that they're going to blossom in really strange and weird ways. And even from Jason's perspective, the setting and starting to already seed some of these, like yeah, a particular star, I guess, for motorcycle Poxmonk. That's really interesting and intriguing, and I'm anxious to see where that goes. Uh yeah, I guess I'll just keep it short. And as far as wishes are concerned, um yeah, it's fun to start kind of like, as Jason said, just kind of like knocking the tires on these things and sort of figuring out. I'm always I have a like really rough concept, and I'm just trying to figure out like, okay, what is this? How is this going to open up? And the character is building and that type of thing. Yeah, I guess this goes back to being a star. Is that I just really like this point of like getting, and so maybe this is yeah, I'm just reverting to stars here. Uh, just everyone is like making some pretty hard moves here, and I think that that helps almost in the same way that like clues work, right? Is we're getting some like really big, meaty pieces of information about the characters that are still void of context, but it gives us something to play off of and play off of each other. So yeah, my wish is to kind of continue that. Um, personal wish. I was making hard moves to try and fail, to sort of get some of those prompts on the board because I was just like, okay, what's the most extreme thing that I can do here? I'm just gonna do this and hope that I fail. So wish that I fail. Although it's been fun, yeah, so far as well. Yeah, wishes for failures all around.
Alrighty. Early on in character development here, Butcher's diagrams for saints and extinct or unknown entities, it just sets my brain aflame. There's so many great ideas there. Sarah's skipping stone that keeps coming back to you. How many times have you skipped a stone and gone, oh yeah, that was really good, and it's gone forever? To have it magically reappear is so satisfying. A chef doing scrimshaw on cooked bones is just, it deserves its own movie. It's grotesque, and it's going to be amazing seeing that play out. And Ben, you said I just seem to have treats on me at all times. I think it was the tone of voice there that got me. That there was sort of it was happy and it was supportive, but there was just like an underlying layer of this shouldn't be. Uh, I misheard something Jason said. I thought he said, in describing the Angel of the Dusk Mother, a large creditor, not a large predator. And I know that's wrong, and context gave it to me. Yet I could see it playing out. This town of Weft is pursued by a large creditor. And I'm looking forward to seeing the general idea of terroir as a pleasant, delicious, what do you say, attribute to food or wine, and also grave dirt. It's going to play out amazing, I can just tell.
It's not always going to be delicious, sweetheart.
Exactly. And then Sarah, you said, not today. It's still very early in the morning. And I feel like that's just sort of a great carte blanche statement in role-playing games. Not today, it's still very late in the morning. So I really love the characters and the overarching setting, and look forward to seeing what we play.
I have a couple other stars. One, I also star for Ben's voice, that sort of cheery voice, because it was uncanny. Like the character is trying to be happy and cheerful, but it does not read that it reads as really, really unnerving. And so star for that, and also a star for the decision to just say, to create the fiction of, well, it's the dawn, it's the early morning, no one's at the factory yet. Like, it changed the whole nature of the rest of the phase, or the rest of the investigation, which I thought was really great. So yeah. Any other stars or wishes? In that case, we will wrap up. I just want to remind you all to kind of to Mike's point about like feeling these characters out and exploring the ideas that you have for your characters. These characters do come, because they're CFB characters, they come really preloaded with a lot of stuff, but you do have a lot of space to also go deep with it, and that's what your mass or your verse of history and prophecy are. So do take a look at that and be thinking about what those prompts mean, because the time to start leaning into that role play is now, right? So be doing that, and also be thinking of, just gods. Gods of this, gods of that. It's always helpful to have some god names ready to go, I find, when running this. So, but
That's
I've got nothing
actually
else. Yeah.
precisely what I wrote in my homework notes, was history and gods.
History
so
and
just
gods.
just
Yep.
a light
Yep.
homework.
a little bit, Fantastic. All right, well, that's all I've got. Let's wave goodbye to anybody watching the video. Goodbye, anybody watching the video.